Hello and welcome to this episode of the Round Ball Australia podcast. It's me, Jacob, hosting again. Lockie has taken the weekend off from any responsibilities of any kind, it seems, and has gone just AWOL completely. It's been difficult to even get a hold of him, but I'm joined tonight off the back of an absolute thriller out there in the west of the country, Matt Olsen. Matt, I mean, first of all, that was a crazy finish to that game, and I mentioned in the group chat that it felt like Perth couldn't buy a goal during that one, and we'll talk more about it, a bit later on. But that was a thrilling ending for Perth.
Yeah, Adam Taggart. I don't know if it's sort of well known at all, but that was actually Adam Taggart becoming Perth Glory's all-time top goal scorer. So they probably mentioned a fair bit on the broadcast now that I think about it. But obviously as someone that was not watching the game with commentary, just seeing him really struggle at the end there. I mean, there was multiple chances there. Kaczarski as well had a few. Diabru and Kolakovsky, there was a lot there on offer for them. So to finally just kind of nab the points there at the end. Adam Griffiths said in his presser, rather kind of in his own flamboyant style, we can easily go on and win 4 in a row, make the finals, no problem. And I'm thinking, mate, do you even have any context as for the last 7 years of this football club's history to just come out and say that? But no,
I kind of love the unabashed confidence there, though. In a way,
no, it's crazy. Sorry, someone's just kicked a ball in front of me, and I wasn't expecting it from the direction with which it came. No, but it is very, very odd kind of way to handle it. But I think it speaks a lot to the way that he's coaching this team at the moment. I think there's a lot of let's just go out and be confident and be ourselves. And I think it says a lot that guys that have sort of come into the team over the summer, like your Kolakovskis, have been really, really wanting to give back and give it their all. And, I don't think it's hardly the worst season this club has had in a few years. And I don't know if we just want to start off by talking about this game in particular. For Melbourne City, they are also probably going to be licking their wounds a bit because they've come into a position where the schedule... again, Vidmar's kind of said in the presser that they were on average playing games every 4 days because of the Asian commitment. Heartbreaking loss to Buriram in the shootout. But for them to now be in a position where it's we've got the consistency with the schedule freed up. We've only got this league campaign to finish off. We've got this kind of hunt for the finals that we're actively a part of. To drop points in this situation, pretty foul taste in the mouth for City as well. So I think it's hardly the most sort of consequential game in A-League history, but there's a fair bit that's gone about tonight, I think.
I mean, I think the thing that hurts the most for probably both of these sides as well, given that at periods during this season they've kind of been in the mix, right? I mean, Perth Glory, it might have been a little while ago, and City kind of have slowly fallen out of the top 6, but they both at one point or another were up there as potential final contenders, and are now kind of sitting down in that bottom half of the table. And I think the disappointing for both of these teams would be not just the fact that this is another case where they've not gotten 3 points, but the fact that over the last couple of weeks a lot of the teams around them haven't gotten those 3 points either, so they've missed these opportunities now to jump up ahead and get themselves back in the race for the top 6. And City now sit 2 points off of MacArthur, who are in 6th place. They do have a game in hand, which is that's a pretty helpful thing to have, but it feels like definitely for both of these teams, but especially for City, really a missed opportunity to get all 3 points and actually kind of get themselves back in with a fighting chance to, City have never missed the finals, right? That's the big stat that they always talk about. It's the thing that they hold themselves to of their standard. It's looking like a very real possibility this season, Matt, that they might miss out on finals for the first time since being called Melbourne City.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's tough for me because the A-League is just gonna be chaotic, and when you've got a really sort of inconsistent gaggle of teams there. I mean, Brisbane have been no good on multiple occasions. Yeah. The Phoenix have had that changeover of management, and Chris Greenacre's a pretty steady pair of hands, and they've obviously had a bit of an uptick in their results. Perth have had some really poor history that they're coming off. Who am I even missing at this point? I don't really off the top of my head know where the Mariners are at in their journey, but there's a lot of teams there where it's like I can't really rely on
Mm,
you. So I think they've got a bit of a clear path in terms of being like the next best.
yeah,
But when you've got the likes of sort of MacArthur sitting around there as well, it's tough. It's tough. Teams can look absolutely world class one week and frustrate you to all hell the next week. And I mean, you would know. I know from conversations with you, Jacob. It feels like every week you're talking about Adelaide like they're experiencing the biggest downfall in their history, and it's like, well, yeah, maybe a bit of perspective, but also I think that's intrinsically the A-League experience. Unless your
yeah,
team is winning the league, you're going to have a horrible time. Sorry for the language, but you're going to have a really, really bad run of it, you know?
yeah.
So, yeah.
It's well, I mean, you bring up Adelaide and kind of the fact they've had some middling performances over the last couple of weeks, but they were one of the teams this round who turned their fortunes around, and it was a kind of comprehensive victory over the Wanderers. I say that you look at the scoreline, you'd assume that 4-2. Well, it's a bit of a shootout, but they had the edge kind of thing. But this was actually, the Wanderers again. They get on the score sheet first and they can't win the game. That's kind of been their story for the last 5-6 weeks now, it feels like.
Yeah.
Whereas Adelaide, their big problem the last few weeks has been not putting chances to bed and putting it in the back of the net, and they've gone out and done that quite easily in this one.
Yeah.
Luka Jovanovic gets himself a brace and 4-2, so it's the same old story repeating for the Wanderers, who remain rooted to the bottom of the table. But for Adelaide, it felt like a big release for a lot of those attacking players to get on the score sheet, comprehensively beat a team, take those chances, and to now be back in that top four again. It was a big one for Adelaide to get the win there.
Yeah, and I talk about a lot of these guys who are real fighters in the Perth team. I mean, Luka Jovanovic has just struck me as a player that's always going to be given his all. I recall at a point earlier in the season where he's missed a bit of a sitter. It was a home game on a Friday night. Missed a sitter. Came out in one of the fan groups on Facebook and personally apologised. So
Yeah.
He's had a fair
I think that was
few-
the original rivalry where he's missed it. He's gone around the keeper and missed it, and yeah. But no, it's a great bounce back of confidence, right?
Yeah, well, that's it. He's needed a game like that, but I think he's also like a player at A-League level that's really been able to kind of show his quality, and really, really put in a performance like that. So I think, it's probably been due for Adelaide to kind of get those corrections. I think they're still in a very, very good direction right now, as a club, and they have the players to put in a performance like this. For me, the Wanderers are. I think the Wanderers are kind of my pick for the spoon. I don't know if that's a controversial thing to say. Again, especially talking about how miserable some of those teams in that bottom six have been at times, right? But no, I think Friday night that was mostly for me an exhibition of that winning edge some teams will have to be able to kind of make a contender of themselves for that finals race. And Adelaide, for me, a class above in the way they've kind of gone about that, and they needed to be clinical, and rightly they were.
And for Adelaide, it's interesting because I think a lot of expectations heading into the season were kind of downplaying what the team was going to be able to do. You look at the outgoings that were had in the off-season, a lot of key players, Stefan Mork and Zach Clough among them, that were leaving. It felt like, in terms of recruitment, it wasn't the most inspiring. A lot of 30 X-year-olds, coming into the squad that, Juan Muniz is starting to have an impact now, and Selmo's just getting back to fitness, but still maybe haven't quite lived up to being these big import players that it felt like the team needed. But they've gone out there and they've done a fine job with a lot of the youngsters. And you're wearing a Socceroos jersey, so I'm going to pose this question to you here. There's a couple of players in and around the Adelaide team that there's a lot of conversation about them and their future with the Australian national team, not in terms of, they're going to go and commit elsewhere, as has been kind of the storyline we've seen with a few players recently, but how long before they start to make their way into the senior squad. We just spoke about Luka Jovanovic, and I'm a big fan of his. I think the way that he can hit the ball on the turn is tremendous, and he can find space to shoot among the best of them. But the other two really that have kind of lit up and been the big names this season for Adelaide have been Panakikianis at the back and Ethan Alagic in the middle, and they've both represented Australia obviously at youth levels, but it just feels like like surely with the continued performances they're putting out, it's just a matter of time. I mean, maybe the World Cup's going to hold them off just for a little bit, have that stable squad heading into things, and obviously we've seen the last window now for squads close before that World Cup. But after the World Cup, it feels like these are the kinds of players that playing their trade in the A-League for their local clubs are going to be the ones that are going to have that next opportunity to step up for the national team as well.
Let's not forget that Panna and Luca were both part of. Was Ethan in there as well? I don't think he was, but they were both part of the team that's finally gone and won us the nation championship,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
that's something that genuinely we hadn't done for 20, 25 years at youth level, right? So
Yeah.
I do think that there's a good future there, and especially sort of knowing that our wingers, or even a wing back, which I know Kekianis can play from time to time, that is a position that tends to be really problematic for us. Like, we don't seem to ever have the consistency at international level.
Yeah.
And Luca, again, I mean, we know that the real problem position for the Socceroos for a long time now has been the forward sort of presence there as well. So absolutely, I think that there's a lot of potential there. Alagic, I worry about Alagic only for the fact that, like, I see a lot of leadership in him. Like, a more senior version of him could go on to sort of have a big impact. But exactly where his ceiling lies, he strikes me as the kind of player that could make the wrong move domestically. Like he could jump at the chance to go and play in Scotland really early or something like this, and that worries me, because I just don't think we've had a good track record of young players trying to break in at the right time.
Yeah.
With their domestic moves. And I mean, look, he could stay at Adelaide for a really long time, but usually when players get to a certain age and they have been performing well for their club, they jump at that chance, really early, and so that it's just food for thought, because we're talking in hypotheticals here anyway, right?
That's right.
So,
well, I mean, I think the thing that's going to help there is the fact that he's in the first or second year of something like a 5-year contract, right? So, if clubs are going to be coming for him, at least there's going to be a big payday on the end of it, which is if that happens, it could be a lot worse. He could be going for free. So, no, there's definitely a lot to like there about some of those youngsters. But I think, look, we've kind of been avoiding it, but the big game of the round, it was top of the table clash between the Jets and Sydney. Well, not exactly top of the table, but it was one of these ones where we've spoken about it for weeks now leading into it, that this could have massive ramifications for how the seasons of both clubs play out. Obviously, they're both towards the top. Sydney for a while were kind of in that title discussion, but I think after their loss last week to City, kind of fell out of it a little bit. There was still a chance to get back in, though, with a win against the Jets, and they couldn't quite manage it. It was literally a last-minute winner from Ben Gibson. I think it was the 3rd or 4th minute of added time to get it 2-1 result for the Jets, who now extend their lead at the top because of another result where Auckland lost, which we'll touch on in a bit as well. But massive, massive relief for the Jets, who were unable to get the job done last week against their direct rivals Auckland, but have now seen themselves take a 4-point lead at the top of the table, Matt, with only a couple of games to go now. I think, 4 or 5 games left. That is huge for them.
So, I mean, the thing is, I don't think anyone embodies this kind of current era of the A-League better than this current Jets team. Having like a ragtag bunch of young players that are both like old enough to have gained a bit of experience, but also young enough to the point where you're still like, okay, these guys are young and fun and exciting, with a coach that's, in his first season has already won a cup. Like, there's just the Jets are just obviously the feel-good story. And I want them there on grand final day, especially because of what happened in 2018, right? So for these big fixtures to come at you, and Allianz, when it's pumping, is not the easiest place to go and play. So for them to have asserted their dominance, and with someone like Mark at the helm, it is just such a feel good win. You leave a result like that, just unless of course you're a Sydney fan, you leave a result like that, I think, as a neutral, just like feeling quite happy for the league as a product. That was really what kind of sprung out to me first and foremost.
I guess that's kind of been the storyline, though, right? Is that the Jets are the feel-good story of the league this year. It was kind of Auckland last year, right, where everyone was keen to see how they'd get on, and they had great numbers and a good atmosphere and were playing great football and getting the results, and maybe they were going to be that team that wins it in their first year and all that kind of stuff. And it felt like they were in the reincarnation of the Wanderers when they first came into the league. But the Jets, yeah, I think you're spot on with that kind of statement, that they epitomise everything that the league has going for it at the moment, which is young, exciting players, young, exciting coaches, a lot of Australian talent in there, good football, entertaining football. I mean, obviously, sucks for Sydney, who now not only are out of the title race definitively, but are out of the top four. They have been jumped by both Victory and Adelaide this weekend.
Rumours their coach is going to bang off to go to the rival club as well. I mean, it's all going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mess at the moment for Sydney, but for the Jets, yeah, it's that feel-good story. And look, in a league that has so often... I mean, there was the discussion earlier this year, right, where it's all about... We're always highlighting the negatives. Who was it? Was it Stadge that came out and said that in a press conference, wasn't it? And it's, we're always highlighting the negatives. Here is a great story, right, of the Jets doing what they're doing. So, I know we talk about them a lot on this podcast, but it kind of feels like it's warranted because so far they're kind of yet to let us down.
Well, I love how poorly that's aged, by the way.
Yeah. From the Sydney perspective, look, there's been a lot going on there at that club, as we just touched on. Obviously, the rumours of Tale heading to the Wanderers and kind of the wording around that, and him almost skirting it a little bit by saying no, talks haven't happened yet, when the rumor was that talks would be happening. So it's kind of kind of interesting there, and also just their fall off of form from where they were kind of to start the season, up there in that top 2, top 3, and now sitting in 5th place. There was a moment that was quite funny in this game because I think it kind of encapsulates the Sydney season as well, where the Newcastle Jets had this perfect offside trap and caught just about the entire Sydney team offside, and it was Ryan Grant was the one who ended up receiving the ball and kind of copping the blame for it. But it kind of feels like that's how Sydney have been the last couple of weeks. They've been caught by surprise by everybody else around them, and now they've dropped out of the title race, out of the top 4, and now they're going to be in a battle with those teams like MacArthur, like the Mariners, like maybe City if they can win this game in hand for the rest of the final spots. And it's kind of a question of where has it all gone wrong for them? It's just the bottom has completely fallen out of their season in the last few weeks, and it just feels like they're going to really struggle now in the run into finals to find that form again and have some convincing results, especially considering the fact that they're going to be coming up against some of those rivals for those top 6 spots.
If we go back to about 2015, I was still in high school at the time, right? This is 11 years ago, okay?
Yeah.
The blueprint of who Sydney FC are is still intrinsically the kind of last gasp of that the club is still hanging on to in a way. Think about it this way. The coach was Graham Arnold, right?
Mm-hmm.
Graham Arnold's gone on and created a legacy, won premierships, won championships, done that whole shebang. A veteran like Ryan Grant has been there all the way, come through to win all those premierships and championships, score a winning goal in one of the COVID grand finals.
Yeah.
And in that time we've gone from Arnold into my brain's going to go completely blank here while I'm trying to make a really good point that I'm making. Into Corica, thank you, Corica.
Yes,
and then from Corica into Tale. Yeah. So what you've done is you've gone from Arnie's DNA into his assistant, into his assistant's assistant, and you've kept a veteran like Ryan Grant there, captain for the club, 400 appearances or whatever it was that he's ended up making for the club. That's great. But it kind of seems like they've done everything in their power to avoid a transition at the club. They are terrified of the idea of actually having to go through a transition and be a modest mid-table club, right? Yeah. And you know what? City had the balls to do it, and they've come out and very proudly represented us on the Asian stage, won a championship for themselves last season, and Sydney, just for whatever reason, Sydney seemed very afraid to let go of that. So I don't know if that's a big part in how, because again, that like their foreign recruitment and things like this has always been spot on. But even small things throughout the years, like Joe Lolly randomly wanting to come to Perth when that
Yeah,
happened.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it just seems very un-Sydney like for things like that to happen. And the fact that they've like bribed him or blackmailed him into staying at the club, it's
Yeah.
so random, hey.
Yeah, it's. I
So
wonder if it's symptomatic of the A League as a whole, though, because I don't think that Sydney are necessarily alone in this, right? In that they've built themselves to be a contender year in year out because of kind of the way that the league works. Really, anybody can feasibly compete for it. So if you hold yourself to those standards, you can theoretically be in there with a chance every year. Same kind of thing with Victory, right? Where they are, consider themselves the best club in the league, so they have these elite standards. They want to be in the top two every year. They want to be winning silverware every year. Other clubs, to kind of a lesser degree, Adelaide kind of consider themselves always a finals contender at the very least, right? Top six finishes, anything other than that's kind of a failure. A few other clubs in that same sort of boat. I'm wondering if it's just a case of there's too much risk involved in throwing away that image versus actually just committing to it and going, it's going to be better for us in the long run, right? It's, you want to hold on to it for as long as you can. I mentioned Victory. The Wanderers kind of have done a similar thing for a long, long time as well, since those early days where they were very, very good. They've just tried to cling on to it for as long as they can and hope that it's just going to come back through the league being kind of even, and it's not for them, right? And now they're sitting bottom and they're on their nth coach in however many years, and it's just, it feels like it's the same old story. So it's interesting that Sydney kind of have this blueprint of what not to do in this situation with their neighbours, with Victory kind of, okay, they're making a bit of a comeback again, but they're still on shaky ground, still some fans who aren't 100% certain what the direction of that club is, and yet Sydney are following in those footsteps and being, just very, very much, no, we're going to stay with the DNA that we've had for 3 generations of coaches, and we're going to keep going our way about it, even though maybe the environment here for football is changing. We need to change our ways with that, and it's not going to work for us until we do that. So I'm wondering, it's just a theory. Maybe part of it comes down to the fact that the league, kind of almost encourages everybody to be competitive. So some teams struggle to see the value in blowing it all up for a year.
But I think again, if you were to draw comparisons, though, naturally it is part of a salary cap system, and being part of a salary cap league,
Yeah.
eventually, the franchise that you're running, transitions naturally have to happen because it's very disposable. Coaches and players are always guaranteed to move on with a good 3 to 4 year window, right?
Yeah.
Very, very rare. It is actually it's not even a rarity. It's straight up impossible. And someone like Ryan Grant has defined the ruling of the fact that players don't stay in one environment forever. We talk about Adam Taggart being record scorer tonight for Perth. He's obviously been someone that's played, like 120 games for Perth or whatever he's played. But that's all been done, and it's all been broken up in three stints. Because even he originally went over to Newcastle and went to Brisbane.
Yeah.
And then he's obviously had his stints in the J League, had his stints in the K League, came back again, felt it was the right place for him to get into the Socceroos mold, and it kind of worked out. And just such a tumultuous career that he's had. So even the loyalty to the clubs doesn't exist, and that's where I think Sydney are just straight up scared because you're letting the last remnants of the Arnie DNA go. You're eventually going to have someone like Ryan Grant retire. What identity do you actually have?
Yeah.
And that's exactly the point that I think is that we're making here. It's just it is very, very hard to emotionally deal with that when it's been something that's been around for a long time. We also distinctly remember at the turn of the decade when Kevin Muscat left Melbourne Victory for the first time in 13 or 14 years. The club completely fell apart because without Kevin Muscat, the club was nothing. And this is the problem: is that the system is literally designed to spit you out. So when you as a player or a coach, and especially coaches because they just set the tone, coaches have a really, really big thing with being able to just completely transform the tone of a club in the A League. I don't get why it happens, but look at obviously when Griffiths got appointed at Gloria this season and he started to win a few games, it was like the DNA the mood that staff were in walking down the hallway, like you
Yeah.
felt it physically change.
Mm.
And, we talk about the Jets. I mean, this is completely off the back of Mark Milligan finally entering senior management.
Yeah.
It's a very, very weird example of what's unique to our league in that sense, I think.
And that's what was part of why Sydney fans are frustrated with Tale, right? Despite the
Yeah.
fact they're kind of still in and about it, it's not been that revolutionary kind of change that they've seen at other clubs around the league over the years.
Yeah.
The Mariners recently, Perth this year, Jets this year. You can argue kind of the Raw this year as well have found a bit of stability with Valkanis. So that's why there's that frustration, because it just feels like the same old for them rather than something brand new that's exciting and different and is going to change their fortunes.
And the thing is that when they go out and make a change, like let's say they go and hire a foreign coach or something like that, it's going to hurt. It is absolutely going to hurt, because they will lack a sense of direction. We don't know how the recruitment's going to go, and that's where you're really at the kind of mercy of how does everyone else hold up? Is everyone else going to hold up okay? So,
Yeah.
so it's a big talking point.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Now, we all know that being a football fan requires you to manage a bunch of different streaming subscriptions. So the last thing you want to do when you're traveling is manage even more. That's where today's sponsor comes in, NordVPN. This exact scenario happened to me. I was in Singapore late last year. I wanted to watch the Prem, but the hassle of going and finding the local broadcaster and signing up to another service I could forget about, wasn't having it. But all I had to do was connect my VPN back to Australia and I could enjoy all the normal subscriptions that I was already paying for back home. This is an actual photo of me watching Arsenal Crystal Palace in the hotel lobby. And today, NordVPN have a special deal for football fans just like us. By clicking the link in the description or using code ROUNDBALLVPN, you can get yourself a massive discount on a 2-year plan, 4 extra months completely free, and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Even if you aren't traveling, NordVPN helps you stay safe online. They protect you from scams on up to 10 devices and are the fastest VPN service according to independent testing. Support the show and use code ROUNDBALLVPN.
Well, another a team that's going to be licking their wounds after this weekend is Auckland, who lost to MacArthur, Matt, in probably the most unexpected result, I think, of the weekend.
Yeah.
This is just, nobody would have had this on the cards coming into it. Not least Auckland, not least MacArthur, not least the Jets, who were very, very happy that Auckland dropped points after beating them last weekend. I mean, I don't know, Matt. Like, it feels like from one week to the other, I'm favouring in my head. I'm going, the Jets are going to win it. Auckland are going to win it. After last weekend, I was like, Auckland are on for the title here. They've got it over the Jets. They're going to have this run. Their morale's going to be through the roof. And then they lose to MacArthur. It's been so back and forth there this season with the Jets and Auckland. The Jets have been mostly pretty solid, but particularly Auckland dropping points here and there. And it's just, it feels like it's never going to end. Like, I don't know if they're just teeing it up for, the sake of drama, right? And they're going to make a last week run for the title or something rather than just getting it done and out the way with. But I'll tell you what, that is a shocking result. Not for the fact that, it was bad football or anything like that. MacArthur played very well and Auckland were basically out of the game. But shocking result in the fact that literally coming into this, nobody would have expected this result.
Oh, 100%. For me, I think it's been quite a regular pattern that these runs in Asia have been more extensive, like more of an exhaust on the clubs in this era than they kind of have been in previous years. And I think, again, when we talk about City kind of having their schedule freed up to make a finals run, MacArthur struck me exactly the same way. They've got things freed up for themselves now. And I think the good thing is they've built a really good identity with Milos Sajovski, where you can rely on them being a mid-table or a finals club. Mm-hmm. And so I think a win like this is just such a big statement, because it's kind of there to say we are going to maintain the status quo. And if you look at, again, some of their players as well, I thought Callum Talbot was particularly brilliant in this one.
Yeah.
But from Auckland's point of view, I think that, you just have to be a little bit shell-shocked, because they've almost come into it, I think, having really built a winning DNA and a winning culture. But I think that there is a sense of almost sort of arrogance there, especially from some of their foreign players as well. I've really picked up on that. I think they think that they've got things a little too easy. To to say exactly why they've come out and lost this, it's just general A-League shenanigans though. You know, we love a good game like this. We love a good result, and yeah, you know, I followed along with a bit of the first half because it was also correct me if I'm wrong. It was also there would have been Asian Cup stuff going on as well. So
Yes,
probably where my mind was mostly at. So
yeah.
yeah, I didn't catch the game in full, but it is one that I definitely do kind of want to go back and watch in full because I want to understand exactly where those weaknesses are, and I can tell you, you talk about sort of Ufi Tale and Mark Milligan and some of these guys, they're going to be watching with a lot of intent because being able to break down Auckland at their own turf is something that's just been such a rarity to see for Aussie clubs as well. So really, really important that a bit of a template set off the back of this one as well.
100%. And well, I mean, we mentioned A-League shenanigans, and it's a real in the mold of, I think, an A-League player, Tommy Uscock, who gets the winning goal for MacArthur. It's kind of, that's, you're talking about, they've built this DNA at that club of winning, but it's also by, backing these players that are experienced A-League players that just they maybe haven't felt like they've had that belief in them from a coaching staff or from a club before, right? I mean, Uscock's been around with MacArthur for a little while now, I think since 2022 when he left Western, but It's kind of, it's a few of those players. It's him, it's the Luke Bratton, it's an Anthony Caceres, it's these players who have a lot of history in the league, who have a lot of history in beating a lot of the clubs in the league, who have a history of putting in these good performances, coming together, unified, to actually put these performances in as an 11 rather than just as an individual player. And I think that's kind of been the magic. The problem is that it doesn't necessarily have that ceiling, right, that a Jets do or an Auckland does on a good day, right? But the floor, I think, is much improved for them compared to a lot of teams because the likelihood of all of these guys putting in a bad performance at once is pretty low. So it's been just smart squad building, I think, from Mile Stejovski of getting a lot of these players in together. There's leadership components in there as well, which is always a big thing to have at this level. And just, these players who have been underrated kind of their whole careers. I mean, Caceres, maybe you could argue otherwise, has kind of had a pretty decent career for himself, but in terms of still being able to.
Caceres and Bratton, sorry to jump in. Caceres and Bratton spent time in like the City football group where they got like loans to Man City temporarily.
Yes,
like that's the kind of they were some of the players with Aaron Moy, where it's like we're gonna bring this Australian kind of effect in to the CFG group now that we've bought Melbourne City. One, that shows how long they've been around for, because again, we're going back about 10, 11 years here again. And two, I think it just highlights probably another reason why it's really disappointing that they didn't have a better run in Asia, because I think again that they had the DNA of a club that could have gone on to win the ACL too, with a lot of their senior recruitment. But come finals time, and I think we can pretty reliably say that they're a team that will be in that hunt, and they can easily finish 5th or 6th on the table. I would not want to be coming across MacArthur in the finals. There's just a lot of really experienced heads there that can crack on in a one-off game scenario like that.
And they've been involved in a couple of crazy games already this season, right? The 5-4 against Jets earlier this season, for instance. Like, they just have that kind of that ability to embrace just a bit of chaos and just go, you know what, we back ourselves regardless of what goes on here to get a result. So I'm with you 100%. Like, in a one-off game, this is a team that could be really scary to come up against, because there's so many figures who can just calm the game down and lead by example, but they're also just fully ready to throw themselves into chaos and embrace it if they have to. It's just, you can't really prepare for either of those two things. They'll be very difficult to come up against, for sure. What other games were there?
Brisbane and Wellington. Wellington back in the kind of winners circle, but I don't think much of it. I think Brisbane were particularly woeful. It's good to see that Wellington found a bit of form though, because they were looking like spoon material for a little while there once sort of Chiefy moved on. They've kind of got a bit more stability there. I don't necessarily think that means like they crack on and make the finals. I think very similar to Perth in that it's just good that there's a bit more stability there, but not really anything to make of it.
I think the interesting thing with Wellington
Yeah.
is that they've kind of I think they are a little bit back in it. I mean, for reference, they're on 27 points right now. MacArthur's sixth with 28. You've got the Mariners tied on points on 27 as well. I think they are one in that pack of. There's now 3-4 teams that kind of are probably fighting for one final spot. I mean, depends how hard Sydney continue to fall off, I suppose. But, you've got MacArthur, the Mariners, Phoenix, and then maybe City, maybe at a stretch the Raw, right? Who could realistically fight for one final spot. I think the fact that Wellington are, yes, they got the win here, they got the win last week as well. They're actually in a decent spell of form considering their season as a whole, 3 games unbeaten, 7 points from their last 3. They're pushing towards being kind of in the right vein of form at the right time for the season. I don't think they'll go on and, make a big impact in finals necessarily, right, compared to a lot of the teams they'll be coming up against. But I think there is a better than not chance that they will be in that fight for the 6 come the end of the season, especially if, these last 2 wins are anything to go by. Well, like you said, they've found stability now. It's been so turbulent for them that they've found their baseline now, and they can kind of revert to actually putting some performances in. I don't know, maybe I'm just a bit too optimistic on them, but it does feel like they're starting to find things at the right time.
Fine, yeah. No, another thing to just mention there is, because I think Chris Greenacre's had like 4 or 5 interim stints at the club. Like he's just stuck around for ages.
That's just been his job. They're just like, oh, we need somebody for the week. Yeah, all right. I mean,
no, but those younger players. I mean, basically, seriously, anyone that's sort of come through the Phoenix Academy, like, would have a personal relationship with him.
Yeah.
And when you've got a younger squad there, they're going to be very responsive to him. I think he's actually, I don't know, because clearly, throughout all of the years, he's never actually taken the head coaching job for whatever reason. He might have more of an asset to New Zealand football, or maybe he is just really good at producing players and whatever else. But I'd be sort of keen to say that in this modern era of the A-League, and with more of that kind of New Zealand youth base biding its time between 2 clubs now. Yeah. I think this is actually the golden time for someone like Greenacre to really make his mark as a head coach. And exactly to the point that we were saying before, a bit of good coaching. Don't underestimate the ability of good coaching, because it can literally transform clubs in this league. So I actually have full respect for Chris Greenacre. I've always rated him. I've always liked him. Look, you do actually mention they're actually only 1 point off the 6. So maybe it's just that it's been such a monumental turnaround that it would be crazy to think that they can actually go on and do it. And I'd still be inclined to say they're not going to. But it does seem like things internally, I think Chiefy's called it quits at exactly the right moment for things to turn around. So
it's one of those ones that I think has probably mutually benefited both parties, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, Chiefy's managed to kind of get out and save face a little bit and save a bit of his reputation that he's built up from that good season 2 seasons ago. And the Phoenix have kind of been able to bring Greenacre in and give themselves a chance to find some form in the back end of the season, and not have the season be a complete write-off. So it's one of those moves that kind of for both parties you go, yeah, makes sense. And they've done a decent job splitting when they have. The final game this weekend, of course, was the Victory smashing the Mariners 4-1. Another game where Juan Mata had his fingers all over it, Matt, and he's a player who, just superlatives can't stop him at this point. It's crazy that every week we talk about how great he does, and then he just goes out and the next week he plays even better, and it feels like even a bad game from him, he's getting on the score sheet or he's getting an assist. And I don't like to focus so much on one player, but I think his kind of identity has been undeniable in the Victory team this season. Of course, questions raised about Wanderers and his usage at that team last season, but I think it's pretty clear that when you're able to just have a player like that in your team, and we were talking about MacArthur with their fantastic squad building, the Jets in a similar way, when a team gets together, it's great. But for Victory, it's just one player pulling the strings and the opposition has no counter to him. It's borderline unfair for everyone else, right?
It's been such a big X factor though. Like if you're kind of watching from afar, and to be fair, like I've not intrinsically followed the league as much this season as I have previously, anything that comes out of Victory for me just feels like it really does revolve around him.
Yeah.
And I just, again, when it's winning them games in the fashion that it is, because it's such a big spark for what is on paper a pretty decent team anyway, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's a very, very special vibe, and again, they're one of those clubs where when it comes to finals time, you don't really want to mess with them. Like Victory are the only club that's kind of gone on to win a title from the lower half of the top six.
Yeah.
And they strike me as the kind of club that could come out and do it in a season that is very chaotic. I mean, to be fair, seldom are we in a position where, like, there's a very clear top two, and that top two also comes with a very good feel-good factor about it.
Yeah.
You know, a Newcastle-Auckland final, with the jeopardy of what happened in 2018 for Newcastle and what happened last season for Auckland, I think the narrative there is just really, really exciting. But I could just see them doing it. You know, I could just see Victory coming in and making a right menace of themselves. You know, being right there
8
at the
years
tail
on
end.
from that day, just doing the same thing again.
Yeah. No, 100%.
It's crazy though as well from a Mariners perspective in this one, because they come in okayish form, and you know they're kind of in and around again. They're in and around the six. They're wanting to play finals this season, despite everybody kind of writing them off after the first 10 or so games. They open the scoring. Sabit gets on the score sheet in the first 10 minutes, and it feels like, okay, Mariners are going to go here. We've seen Victory kind of struggle once they've conceded a goal, and then no, maybe that played into Victory's hands, right? We've seen in the last few weeks Victory score first and then not really able to kind of capitalize on that, and they drop points like 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
And maybe they went, maybe we just concede first and then we'll score 4 and the job will be done. But just crazy that, you know, the Mariners came out, gets flying, get that opening goal. But it's just, again, it's one, you know, I don't want to reduce it to one player, but, you know, one matter's impact on the game is huge. I mean, Velupale got back on a score sheet for Victory, which is great. And obviously he was selected in the Socceroos squad, wasn't he? So that'll be you know, I'm sure Pop will be glad that that's happened. But I feel like that's a consistent thing with Velupale, is everyone kind of questions, why is he in the Socceroos squad? And then the next week he goes out and scores and everyone goes, oh, okay.
He literally had a 100% goal scoring record for the national team. In 2 games, fresh off that Bahrain loss, where we really needed it. Like, it's the most random thing, but he's actually stepped up and done really well for the national team. The Mariners, I will have to give them credit, because seriously, like, 1 week into the season, we had already had a situation where Warren Moon's come in. We didn't really know what the hell was going on with the ownership situation. For them to have turned their season around, like, a lot of credit has to be given, right? Like, I think the Mariners can already consider most of the season a success, because they were looking like a guaranteed bottom feeder for the bulk of the season. So, I just a game like that though is really just built off Victory at home are very, very good. I don't know. It's not much deeper than that when they've got some of the X Factor players like Juan Mata that we've spoken about. But also, you know, again, a lot of experienced heads, similar to MacArthur, a lot of experience in that team as well. The likes of you know, Miranda and Jason Davidson and guys like that. So.
Yeah, well, 100% experienced team, and with, again, a lot to prove this season. So it's going to be all exciting to see how everything goes. Still a lot for grabs. Top 4 spots are still up for grabs. Title is still technically up for grabs. You know, the teams in the bottom 6 are all fighting each other for pride, I guess, at this point. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out over the coming weeks. We'll finish off this episode, Matt, with it was disappointing, wasn't it? And on Saturday night, the Tillies going down in the final of the Women's Asian Cup, and I don't want to get too much into it here. The grand final review, I think that's been recorded, right, for the Dubcast, so that'll be out already. There'll be a tournament review as well coming up, which is being planned to be recorded early this week, so keep your eyes out for that. So if you want to hear everybody's full thoughts on that tournament and the final in particular, go and watch those. But just some quick thoughts, Matt. It's disappointing, isn't it? Because it felt like, I mean, obviously Japan are a very strong side, so it's not. I don't think anybody went into it going, "Oh, Tilly's are going to win this. It's going to be easy." But it's still disappointing from the perspective of, it felt like there was enough. It felt like there might have been enough on the day to get it done, and it just wasn't there. And that's, I think, the thing that's disappointing, is it's like this wasn't the same kind of performance from Japan that we saw from them against Korea in the semi-finals, right? It felt like the game was there for the taking, and it just wasn't taken. And I think that's the bit that maybe hurts a little bit.
Look, I wrote on the RBA website about the 2018 final and how that especially hurt, because it was the only occasion where this sort of current golden generation had gone in as favourites.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually, I'm taken aback by how similar the
feeling is,
was to 2018. Like, it was almost exactly the same game, but for the fact that there was no missed penalty this time. So, it just, I don't know. I was watching with some personal friends of mine who are not really sports people. A mate of mine has a housemate who is half Japanese, half Korean. And so he was like, I want to watch the soccer final. And so I came over to watch it with him. And then we watched the BDS concert. That was very fun. But yeah, just a great night of getting stuck into all things East Asian culture. It was very, very cool. But look, the goal itself was like top draw. Like, off one touch, when you see the reverse angle and saw exactly how close it got to almost clipping the post, like,
impeccable.
If you're Mackenzie Arnold, you just don't stop that.
No.
And I know it's a bit of a cliche to sit here and go, "Oh, we're so proud of the girls," especially because the Matildas, like, just generally, the Matildas get way too much of that. They get too much fluff and too much praise. But really, seriously, this was a game where, like, there's not much more we could have done. Kennedy's header at the back end there, I mean, that was a phenomenal save. You know, Caitlin Ford, if she put away one of those chances, the conversation could be better. The other thing is that if we forced it to extra time, we would have been the fitter team and probably gone on to win the game.
Yeah.
So that there's just so much of that I think emanates from the game. And it does leave a very sour taste, because, again, this is a trophy that over the 20 years that we've been competing for, we should not only have one Asian Cup title.
Yeah.
Like, it is a bit of a joke on our kind of CV there that the Matildas only have one Asian Cup trophy, and it's only going to get harder and harder, because eventually Korea will professionalise, China will have players abroad. Like, it's only going to get harder and harder. But can we call the campaign as a whole a failure just because of this one game? No. Look, the tournament, having it on home soil. Some of the scenes that the lights around. That's how late we've been here at HBF
Matt Olsen after dark.
No, but seriously, like, just to speak about the tournament as a whole, because I won't really get the opportunity to do this in podcast format again. To have experienced the scenes that I did, to have seen most of the tournament play out in front of my own eyes, was incredibly beautiful. The luxury of seeing the North Korean team on this stage again. The Philippines having a bit of a scare with their World Cup hopes to then have eventually made it to the World Cup. Just like beyond sport, seeing China and Taiwan play in a quarterfinals match, having Taiwan take that game to extra time, like that. I honestly, it's the kind of thing that I need to do a bit of a write-up about, because that was one of the most unique experiences in my whole time watching football. So just, like, the whole tournament was just awesome. It's just awesome, and it does feel a bit, it feels a bit crap, but what can we do?
That's right. Well, it could have been worse. They could have just not made it out the group, right? and then we'd have a legitimate reason to complain. But I guess it's all eyes ahead now to what? It'll be the World Cup next, right?
World Cup in Brazil 2027.
Everybody will be looking towards that one. And I know there were a number of teams that were competing in the Women's Asian Cup that were kind of already one eye towards that. So yeah, everybody's attention's now on that one, and hopefully the Tillies can turn out another good performance there. Disappointing they didn't get the trophy at the end of the day here, but that's football for you sometimes. And you know, as an Englishman, I just want to say, now some of you know the pain that I had in 2020 with that loss to Italy in the Euros final. That one stung for a while. But I think that will be all for tonight's episode, or today's episode of the Round Ball Australia podcast. Yeah, a bit of a strange one with you kind of out on location in the dark now, Matt, but it was great to have you on again.
No worries. Always a pleasure. And Jacob, thanks for your commitment in sticking around to do this as well.
Well, I mean, we had to get it done, so somebody had to do it. But no, thank you, Matt. Thank you to everybody who's listened as well, and tunes in week out. We really appreciate it. Stick around, obviously, more content's going to be coming out over the week. Another round preview. As I said, the Dubcast will be having stuff coming out, reviewing the tournament that we just had. So there's plenty on offer if you are looking for football content at Round Ball Australia. So yeah, thank you very much for listening. That's all for this episode. Goodbye.